Edu Trivia. It's a trivia about education and in the context of Africa. What is it going to be about? In this segment, we want to explore the education systems of Africa. We want to test our knowledge. How well do we know what's going on in different African countries? What is different? What is similar across each of Africa's countries' education system? We will be finding that out one country at a time, one show at a time. Beginning from today, we are going to be looking a little deeply at one of the African countries and finding out something unique about the education system. And hopefully, you will be taking notes on what is similar and what's different with this particular country when you look at your own education system. And why is this important? Why should we take some time to explore the education systems of Africa to find out the similarities and the differences? Well, I believe, and I believe you share in this belief, that when we have a deeper appreciation of our unique and common experiences across the continent, then we will actually form a basis for more meaningful collaboration and cross-pollination of ideas amongst us, Africa's teachers and educators. So we want to ensure we can collaborate, we can share ideas, but we need to understand what is it that we're doing, that you're faced with that is similar as per our education system, what's different, and what can we learn from each other in spite of the differences, and of course, taking into account the similarities. So that's what we will be introducing today, and every day on the show, we will be looking at one African country. And at the end of the month, we'll have a quiz. And the first two people to get everything right as per the quiz on different education systems, you will actually win a place to a virtual Pan-African masterclass training on a topical issue, a masterclass training that will be hosted by me and other international education experts. And we already have one that is already in the cooking. So let's reach out. Which country will we be talking about today? Which country in Africa will we be discovering more about today? Well, we will soon be finding out. At this point, I would like to request my speakers, Sally and Shamo, please call in so that you can step into the podium and be ready to join into the conversation. We are all very excited, looking forward to learn from your experiences. So Brian, please call in. I know you tried calling in before. Please call in. I will admit you. Sally, please call in. I will admit you in as speakers. I hope your headphones are ready. That's Brian already in. Sally, do you want to call in next? Sally is joining us from Botswana. And yes, Brian is already a speaker. I'll be coming back to you, Brian. And here comes Sally. And Sally is also joining us from Botswana. And we're looking forward to admitting Max. Max, we expect that you will be joining us soon. Everybody is excited and is actually looking forward to hearing more of your story. Max, who is popularly known as Dr. Max, made it to the global headlines because of the exploits, his achievements through his WhatsApp Academy, where he, having 42 students in Zimbabwe, his students were able to score very high points, almost equivalent to some of the top elite schools in Zimbabwe. And most of his students are on their way to university. We want to know how Dr. Max actually uses WhatsApp to achieve this. And I know he should be joining us anytime now. So thank you very much for those of us already here. Please remember what you say. This is about a conversation. The conversation is you talking to each other and talking to me, and of course, joining in the conversation with our speaker. So please be ready to be part of the conversation. I can see some people have already started by introducing themselves. And I said, you can join in the conversation by sending in your text chat here on the platform. You could call, but only if you have a headphone so that we do not have an echo on your side. But you could also share your thoughts and reflections based on what you're discussing through the Teacher Talk Radio Twitter handle, TT Radio 2021. And of course, you can tag me, Dr. Otieno M. That is my Twitter handle. And just remember, and you can share this with your friends in case anybody is having difficulty joining us on Podbean. We are also streaming this through Twitter, and we are also streaming this through the Facebook. Through Facebook. So you just need to get the handles of Teacher Talk Radio on both platforms, and you can actually follow from that end. I'm still waiting to get a signal from Max that he is around, but in case we don't get him on Podbean for one reason or another, I expect to call him. I can see him on WhatsApp. So let me just send him a text asking him to join. I hope he's not having any trouble. If he does, we will call him on WhatsApp. We definitely must hear his story. So here we are. Today it's about talking about what's up Africa, what's going on across the continent. And one may ask, why should we be talking about WhatsApp? Why should we? WhatsApp is just a social media platform. Is it something that we should really pay attention to as a continent? Well, I believe so, and I'll be sharing some key data around that and some key outlining part of the context of what's going on across the continent with learning. We know we are still living in the time of COVID pandemic. And as a result, we sometimes are faced with situations where our students cannot be in school. I know Zimbabwe is just about to open their doors to the students this week, though there's been conversations about certain challenges with transportation. But it's not just Zimbabwe. We also know that just close to Kigali, down, for example, Uganda, the schools are still closed. We'll be coming back to that, and we'll paint a picture why it is important for us to stop and ask ourselves what opportunities or affordances WhatsApp presents to us as teachers and as education interventionists. So before we can get into the meat of discussion today, I want to allow my guest speakers today, our guest speakers today, to introduce themselves very briefly, tell us their name and perhaps what institution they're affiliated with, and then we'll get back into the depth of what they're doing in the second phase of this conversation. So I'm going to ask Brian from Botswana to just say hello to everybody and introduce yourself briefly. Brian, over to you, down in Botswana.
Hi, hello.
Hello,
Thank
Brian.
you for having me in the show. My name is Tiamo Brand Badubi. Yes. My name is Tiamo Brand Badubi. Just completed my senior secondary school on my way to tertiary school. I'm currently with Destination Imagine.
Hello, has Brian dropped? Brian?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please be a little louder.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I was saying my name is Tiamo Brand Badubi. Just completed my senior secondary school on my way to tertiary education, and I'm currently with Destination Imagination Africa, which is a STEM-based organization.
Great. We will be hearing more from Brian. He is on his way to tertiary education, tertiary level of education, but he just cleared school. However, he's already engaged in some teaching activities and is already exploiting WhatsApp for that. So we'll be hearing more about that. I'm going to pass on the mic down to Zimbabwe before we come back to Botswana. So Dr. Max, please say hello to the listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself very briefly, and then we'll come back to the main activity or intervention. Over to you, Dr. Max.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. I hope you are getting me
Yes, we are.
very clearly.
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much. My name is Max Ochimedza, now popularly known as Dr. Max, and I own an online school, a WhatsApp online school called Dr. Max Online School from Harare in Zimbabwe. So I'm a WhatsApp teacher. My areas of specialty, I teach history, Shona language at advanced level, then and and family and religious studies. It's my pleasure to have you all here, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful conversations whereby you will be cross-pollinating some ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank,
I have
thank you, Dr. Max. So Dr. Max owns a WhatsApp online school, and he deems himself as a WhatsApp teacher, and he's gone ahead and told us some of the subjects that he personally teaches. We'll be finding out if there are any other teachers in his academy who may be covering other subjects. And of course, many of us here may have read already an article around the achievements of Dr. Max. And in case you have any burning question for Dr. Max, please feel free to already type it out. We'll keep an eye on that, and of course, we'll be able to amplify that and have Dr. Max respond to your questions or comments. Now, let's come back to Botswana. We have with us Sally. So I'm going to ask Sally to introduce herself. Sally. Sally, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, listeners.
Hello.
Yeah, this is quite exciting. Happy to be here. Yes, we love technology, but it still gives us some challenges. Like I was sending a big hello, yet I was still on mute.
Mm-hmm.
We learn. And yes, COVID has exposed us to just being forced. It just like made us just left us under sea and swim. And we were forced to explore how learning has to continue. How do we just have to embrace technology? It's no longer a nice to have thing, it is a must have. I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy,
Mm-hmm.
happy, happy to see a lot of listeners keen to collaborate, listen to your ideas. My name is
Mm-hmm.
Sally Kim, a very Pan African child from Kenya. I work in several countries in sub Saharan Africa, but I have Botswana as a place I call home. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very much in education technology, but I get to streamline it to STEAM education. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
most of the listeners know what I'm talking about, Dr. Otieno. Do I need to explain that?
Well, we'll come back to that. So Sally is throwing out a terminology there, STEAM. I know most of us are used to STEM, but she's saying no, she is actually involved in the sector and she's involved with STEAM education. So we'll be coming back to that. But just to find out if you think you know what Sally is talking about when she says STEAM education, please feel free to type it out for us, and then we'll be able to read it out and bounce it back to to Sally. As she said, she is actually the CEO of Destination Imagination, and she's working across a number of countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And she'll be telling us how over time she has found herself having to use WhatsApp as one of the key platforms for implementing her interventions, her conversations with different stakeholders, both the teachers, learners, but also the policymakers. And this is really important because we'll be looking at what's going on in our classroom, but we'll also be looking at what's going on from outside the classroom to the policymakers. So thank you very much, Sally. Thank you very much, Brian and Maxwell. We are really looking forward to hear more from your experience in terms of using WhatsApp as a platform for promoting quality teaching and learning in Africa. But then we might still be sitting here and saying, is it such a big, is it something really significant? I mean, Sally has already intimated to the fact that one of the reasons why we are sitting here talking about these platforms is because of the opportunities or the challenges that COVID-19 pandemic threw at us. And that's true. And I just want to create some context so that we get a sense of how serious this is and why this is something we need to pay attention to. I will start by highlighting some findings by a fairly big organization in Nigeria. It goes by the name Education Partnership Center. And a few months after the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak and the school closures, a number of months down the line, they did a research study a very in-depth research study, and what they wanted to find out was how was learning taking place during the pandemic. So they, as a result, they had a study report that they titled "Learning in a Pandemic" by, as I said, Education Partnership Center, or sometimes they call themselves TEP Center. Now, when they did the analysis, and of course they were looking at Nigeria, but also within the context of West Africa. And there's a reason why we stop at West Africa when we're talking about this, where we start with West Africa. And part of the reason is West Africa, a number of countries in West Africa were not new to a pandemic. A few years down the line, we had the Ebola pandemic. We had the Ebola crisis, rather. And during that time, millions of students stayed home because of the Ebola crisis in those West African countries. And as a result, they began trying and testing how students could still learn while at home when faced with such a challenge. So by the time the COVID-19 pandemic was coming up in 2020, they basically had to go back and just polish some of the lessons. So I would say they were fairly ahead of the game in comparison to other countries who were facing such a pandemic for the first time. So when they did their study to find out how students in Nigeria, how learning took place during the pandemic, they had quite some insightful findings, but I'm just going to highlight one, which was how students reported, those who were sampled, and they did not just talk to students, they talked to teachers, they talked to education stakeholders, they talked to development partners within the education sector. And according to their research findings, this is what they found out, that of the learners or the people that participated in the survey reported that 44% of the learners accessed their learning through the social media platform. And then another 22% accessed their learning through other phone-based apps. And then about 5% there and about accessed their learning through websites or Google Classroom. And another 21%, well, they were put in a category of other. So this is where potentially we had people accessing learning through radio and TV and all that. So just think about that. Almost 66% of the learners say they access their learning on some phone-based platform. Now, that's food for thought, because usually when we talk about learning in Africa, and when we talk about, what is the technology that we tend to talk about outside internet, when we're trying to deal with challenges with internet connection, we tend to talk about radio and TV. And indeed, many governments, their official intervention, one of their key official interventions across sub-Saharan Africa, were learning interventions that were being transmitted through radio and through TV. Of course, one of the things we'll be discussing soon on this show is how effective were those radio lessons, because the radio lessons have been with us here for decades, even before pandemic. So one would expect that we have since mastered the process of using radio and maybe TV, and that certainly it is giving us quite some good results. But it seems like that might not be the case. And I just want to read to help us get a sense of part why we need to think about this 44% that is using social media platforms, and dig deeper to find out what are those social media platforms. In this case, where do we place WhatsApp? But let's read a little bit. I'm going to read a little bit from a blog that was written. It's on the blogs on the World Bank platform. It was written this month around, September 21st. And I'm going to read the concluding paragraph. The blog is about a study that was done around the efficiency and the effectiveness of using radios in Sierra Leone. And Sierra Leone is counted as one of the countries that has been at it using radios for some time. Remember, I talked about the Ebola crisis, and they have since come up with quite a number of add-ons. So for example, they did not just think about radios, but they looked at how do we build in, make it interactive, so students had the opportunity to call in. And then they went a step further to say, okay, why don't we send SMSs to students to remind them of the radio lessons? And then they went a step further, working with some of the development partners to actually have some of the students have get telephone calls from teachers as a complementary activity to the radio to basically, support the students and tutor them further based on what was transmitted through radio. Now, the study is very telling. I'm still looking at it and we'll be talking about some of the findings, but let me just read the conclusion. And basically, I'm reading this because this is supposed to help us get a context of why we are having a conversation about WhatsApp today and why we must continue with this conversation and come up with some very clear best practices and lessons and strategies of how we can continue or better the process of using WhatsApp. This is what it says. I'm reading a whole paragraph, so please stay with me. It says the pandemic is not over. Low vaccination rates, variants of the virus, and surges of COVID-19 cases. That is the situation that we still find ourselves in. So they're saying all this may lead to future school closures. Beyond this pandemic, schools will close in individual countries for various reasons in the future, and the context here is Africa. This study suggests that radio lessons, even complemented with follow-up from teachers, may not deliver the desired gains. It also shows a need for more experimentation to find ways to help children learn when schools are closed, particularly in environments where students lack access to high-quality internet-based instructions. So that's the conclusion of an article that outlines the findings of a research study on the impact of radio lessons in one country in Africa, Sierra Leone. And it's actually painting a fairly, I would say, grim picture. In other words, we still have some work cut out for us. We have still not yet cracked how to use radio lessons, perhaps. And we need to ask ourselves, what can we do better with our radio lessons? Of course, we can't throw it out of the window. But what it is actually saying, which connects or resonates with why we are discussing WhatsApp today, is that we need to experiment wider and find out what else might we use to support teaching and learning when schools are closed. And of course, it says this is because the pandemic is still with us. This is because schools may close in the future. And the truth is, some schools are closed currently. As I said, Uganda has had their students back at home the second time. For so long, they are yet to open their school. So is learning taking place? Of course, they're using radio. What else may they use? What opportunity exists in terms of using WhatsApp? And that's why we are here today. And that question will, our guests will help us respond to that question. So you get a sense why we are talking about WhatsApp as a continent. Why for us as a continent, when you think about WhatsApp, most of the time, it's just about interactions. But you're saying, no, it's one of the tools we should consider using. And so I want to now go to Zimbabwe. And I'm going to ask our guests, starting with Dr. Max, to tell us a little bit about what is it? I mean, Dr. Max, you talked about a WhatsApp online school. So please take us through, tell us a little bit about this WhatsApp online school. Why did you make it to the global news headlines? Because of your use of WhatsApp. What's going on? Tell us a little bit about your school. How many students do you have? What kind of students? Do you have many teachers? And a little bit of just a sense, and then we'll dig a little deeper in the next phase about how you actually do the teaching, learning, and assessment using WhatsApp. So over to you, Dr. Max.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. I hope you are hearing me clearly, and
Yes, we
everyone
are.
else is here. Yes. I think I'll start with the background of how I started this. Right. I started this platform in 2019. That was mid 2019, and I was helping the students for free. I just came up with a certain group. I created a group, just a normal WhatsApp group, right? Then after coming up with a normal WhatsApp group, I spread the link. The students helped me to gather, to have some others enlisting to the groups. So they joined in their numbers. They filled the groups. I created another to an extent that I had about 500, more than 500 students at that time. But I
Mhm.
couldn't run I couldn't run a school system. Why? Because the schools were opened. There wasn't COVID then. In
Mhm.
2019 years, it wasn't. They weren't those lockdowns, you know. So I was mainly assisting them with examination techniques, you know,
Mhm.
because they were candidates. I'm mainly a candidate specialist. I
Mhm.
deal with
Mhm.
those students who are bound to write at advanced level in Zimbabwe, which is a level which some students must complete before going to the university. I think you are getting what I'm
Mhm.
saying,
Yes.
right? So um, they passed. I helped them and they passed, but I couldn't claim the results then. Why? Because their schools were opened, their teachers played
Mhm.
their part.
Mhm.
Some of them were helped by my tips because revision, that last revision when one is a candidate is also very important because a
Mhm.
student
Mhm.
can learn from two, but if he or she lacks that final polishing, he or she can fail. So that was the part that I dealt with at that time. Then
Mhm.
fast forward to 2020, when the COVID-induced lockdown was imposed by the Zimbabwean government, in particular, that was in around March 2020. Um, I analyzed. I came up. I sat down one day. Then I thought to myself that what can I do? Because
Mhm.
the schools are closed,
Mhm.
um, and the only platform we have is WhatsApp, and I don't think many people see it as a serious thing. So what can I do? Then I analyzed the school system. Then I took the school system in my brain and imparted it on WhatsApp. That's when I came up with the periodic timetables. I came up with what? With assignment days. I came up with assignment submission dates, just like the proper school system, in which
Mhm.
I had a timetable for lessons. I also came up with
Mhm.
my virtual library. I also came up with my library, in which I created some notes, some teaching notes,
Mhm.
and some students' notes as well. And I also came up with the relevant textbooks and everything
Mhm.
else, dictionary, all learning materials that are found at a conventional school. It's like I took that system and placed it on WhatsApp. So
Wow.
some journalists were even shocked that how did I do it? It's like the same way people use WhatsApp to communicate casually, even with their friends or buddies, or their
Mhm.
husband or wife or wives, is the same way, the same functions that I used to teach. So they were shocked because it's something which is so phenomenal. So I came up with the
Mhm.
system. Then after 2 or 3 months down the line, the system was working very well. Then since I was dealing with the candidates when it was around the mid-year, in
Mhm.
Zimbabwe we usually hold what we call mid-year exams. When I'm talking
Mhm.
about mid-year exams, we usually use them to assess whether or not the student is now ready to write the final national exam finally. So I
Mhm.
also set up some tests for my relevant subjects. Then I came
Mhm.
up with mid-year exams in which they could sit for the test for 3 hours. And I was also helped by the parents because these students were at home. So the parents would help me to invigilate. So it
Mhm.
was it was something which was fair enough. So I could mark on the line. In fact, at last I had about around 70. In fact, I had about 64 students last year
Mhm.
because most of them, it's like the parents said that no. At first, I did it as a gratuity for free. Then some of the parents said, "No, you are occupying the students because when there is COVID and when the schools, when children are not going to school, a lot of bad things happen to them. They are so vulnerable and they are prone to
Mhm.
many social ills like early marriages, like what." So the parents were so happy that I was occupying the students, and that's one of the most important thing. In as much as
Mhm.
education is concerned, it occupies the
Mhm.
students and it protects
Mhm.
them against those vices. So I did that. I occupied them. I came up with a school system. The parents were also helped me on the other side. Of course, I faced
Mhm.
some data challenges here and there, but they were economical in nature because I told
Perfect.
them that yeah, what I think is we actually don't have a data problem in Africa. It's a matter of priority. Because if Kanye West produces an album, or let's say it needs to be streamed, you see streams from Africa. I'm not saying that Kanye West must stop that. We see streams from Africa. But when it comes to education, they say that we don't have internet. The same parents, So it's a matter of
Okay.
priorities. How many views are given to Eminem? How many views are given to Rihanna? How many views are given to Drake? But when it comes to learning, people will start to say that we don't have data. But we have billions of views coming from Africa. So that's what I told
Great.
them, that it's a matter of priority. Yes. So
Thank
when
you.
I
Thank you,
prepared this,
Maxwell. Yes. I'm going to come back to you and we can feel the energy. I hope all the listeners can feel the energy and the passion. And I like the challenge you've thrown out to us. Maxwell says we do not have a data challenge in Africa because he says, I mean, when we have music from all those the Rihannas of the day, there is great streaming right from Africa. And you've not touched on football and whatever else. And yet, when it comes to learning, we say we do not have data connection. So you're saying it's priority, priority. And this word priority has been coming to us quite a bit as a continent. And I think when we started our first show on digitization, we said, there's this aspect of priority. And now what Maxwell is saying is that as parents, as students, as teachers, we must challenge ourselves to teach our students, our parents, and ourselves to prioritize. And of course, just listening to what you've talked about, as you said, you took the education system, worked on it, and mirrored it on your WhatsApp. You're talking about creating a timetable, a time schedule that the students had to stick to. You're talking about assignment dates, assignment submissions. You've talked about virtual library where you shared your notes, but also the students shared their notes. And of course, you talked about assessment. So in the next phase of the conversation, we want to dig a little bit in terms of how these things worked, and of course the actual teaching and the actual assessment. But it's quite interesting. Just listening to you, I think one of the key things we're already getting is it is possible, and WhatsApp can be used for supporting teaching and learning. Of course, in your case, you decided to focus on the students or who are about to do exams. So in this case, you're talking about using WhatsApp to help the students polish up, ready for exams. When I read the article, you had categorized the students as the last mile students. So we'll be coming back to that. And I actually have a recording from one of Dr. Max's students who sent in a recording to talk about his experience being part of the online school. So we'll also be playing that recording soon. And so I'm going to pass, we're going to have Brian talk to us also about some very innovative activity using WhatsApp that he did just less than 2 months ago in Botswana with students. So Brian, tell us, what is it that you've been doing with WhatsApp? Not streaming Rihanna or Kanye West. What is it that you've been doing as Maxwell has suggested? Brian?
Okay, thank you.
Brian. Yes.
Well, in my case, I did use WhatsApp to host a virtual. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Stay closer to your mic. Just
Oh,
sometimes you
okay,
get a little
perfect.
distant.
Like I
Yes.
said, hey, I did use WhatsApp to host an online virtual debate competition, which really.
Sorry, Brian, you keep going on and off.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay.
mhm,
I did host a virtual WhatsApp debate competition,
mhm,
which was a very exciting thing for me to do because it really did gain audience from different parts of the world, not just Africa,
mhm,
but we had participants from all over.
mhm,
And it is very amazing what we can do using WhatsApp
mhm,
because most people think WhatsApp can be used only for your social activities.
mhm.
yeah.
We're losing you, Brian. Brian? Brian?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please stay on that spot. Go ahead. Okay, so Brian, please check on your mic and let's see what's going on. If it doesn't work, I will actually call you on WhatsApp. And again, WhatsApp to the rescue. But as Brian was saying, they
Are
actually
you getting
hosted
me?
a virtual interactive debate contest that and they were able to attract participation
Can
not
you hear
just
me now?
from within Africa but beyond. They had other participants from
Okay.
outside Africa. And as he says, it turned out to be a very exciting activity. And we'll be
Like I
listening,
said,
or we'll want to hear more about how that
yes.
played out.
I did
So
use WhatsApp to
I can
host
see
the
we have a
virtual
caller, and I'm
debate
going to try and
competition,
see if sorry,
which really
he's
got
dropped. I'm
audience
going
from
to
all
try and
over the
see
world.
today if we can get in
And
some
what
live
really stood
calls.
out for me is the fact that,
But before we do that, I want us to take a short
sorry?
break and have an advertisement break. So if you allow me, I'm going to play one of our advertisements, and then I'm going to come back to Brian or
Yes,
to
yes, yes.
Stanley to get the other part of the
Can you hear me?
conversation about what's up, yes, with the students, yes, in terms of student activity, but also in
Yes,
terms of interventions, education interventions, engaging with persons within some of the education offices and actually very key decision makers. But before we do that, let's take a small advertisement break and then we'll be back.
okay. What I had to do is I had to.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts, or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
Okay, so we are going to try it. Brian again. I can see he's back. Brian, so you were telling us about your debate contest. Perhaps very
Yes.
briefly, you tell us a little bit of what that was really about and how you actually use WhatsApp to do that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It was just after the announcement of the closure of schools here in Botswana.
Mm-hmm.
Then we took a decision to hold a virtual debate competition using WhatsApp, as it is one of the most accessible means
Mm-hmm.
of social media in the country. Almost
Mm-hmm.
everyone can access WhatsApp, and the data doesn't cost as much as other internet packages. Hey, so
Mm-hmm.
we had to find a way of now trying to creating the same environment you'd get from a real in-person debate competition. Where you would have your debate rooms, where you'd have
Mm-hmm.
your communication room, where you have your auditorium. So it was something that we really took the physical debate competition into being a virtual thing using WhatsApp. And then we did make WhatsApp groups act as our debating rooms, where we had your speakers come in the group, come into the room, debate, and exit the room at the end of the debate. So it was actually more of being in the actual debate competition, because every single aspect of a debate was really, really, really covered. It was up to standards, and everything did follow all the standards of the in live debate competition using the World Schools debate format. And it was really a world class debate, looking at the fact that we did have audience from different parts of the world.
Wow. Wow. That's really interesting. I'm still trying to picture that. I remember seeing that advertisement shared on one of the WhatsApp groups that I am a member of. And I remember pausing and saying, debating on WhatsApp. And now you're talking about creating WhatsApp groups. You're talking about people coming in live and debating and actually being able to measure up to the world debating standards and having participation from different countries. I still want to dig a little bit deeper into that. I guess all of us are trying to imagine what that meant. I'll be coming back to really get a sense of that, where the people coming into the group and recording themselves and then sending or calling, and then somebody else jumps into the conversation. I want us to get into that. And how were you? Where were the judges at that particular time? But this is really exciting. You can see what Shamo says, that just looking at the challenge that was facing us as a continent with the school closures, and looking at issues of internet connectivity, and looking at that WhatsApp is fairly the adoption, the penetration is quite high. I was just looking at some statistics, and I'm looking at countries having up to 97% WhatsApp penetration in Africa. So we have Kenya right there at the top with about 97% penetration, South Africa at 96%, Nigeria at 95%, and most countries actually are way above 60-70% in the continent. And what both Maxwell and Brian are pointing out to is there is something we can do, therefore, with this accessibility in terms of teaching and learning. And we've looked at two ends of the game. On one end, we're talking about an formal learning process where students have timetables, libraries, assignments, and handing in of assignments and assessments. And on the other side, we're talking about what sometimes we refer to as co-curricular activities, which are critical part of our teaching and learning. And we're actually talking about hosting an actual debate, and by using WhatsApp, allowing students from across the continent to interact. How beautiful that is, because one of the challenges we have as a continent is that for a long time we've had limitation for cross-pollination, cross-country interaction, because you think about traveling, you think about distance. If you want to go for a debating competition that is involving a number of countries, you have to think about, but now we are saying, hey, don't even talk about internet connection. As Maxwell said, we have connectivity, and we can use platforms such as WhatsApp or Telegram for countries that use Telegram to do some of these activities. So quite some insightful and eye-opening testimonies we are getting from Maxwell and Brian. And we'll come back to the nitty-gritty. Now I want to push this a little to the next level, where Sally jumps in a little. Of course, Sally is involved also with interventions around that target students in school. But as a CEO, part of what she's looking at is not just working with students directly, but also, of course, having those conversations with the key decision makers, different countries. And Sally, just to jump in, maybe to reflect on what you're hearing from Maxwell and Brian, but then add in a little bit about what your experience has been and how WhatsApp, to what extent you've actually tapped into WhatsApp to facilitate your conversations around your interventions with some of the key decision makers in the continent. And what you think, where are we headed as a continent in this case? Sally? Sorry, it looks like Sally had dropped. So yes, Sally, you're a speaker. Do you want to respond now?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, wow, that's quite amazing. That's quite amazing. Reflecting on what, obviously, I know what Brian did, and
Mm-hmm.
I just sat and watched him because I went like, "How are you gonna do debate on WhatsApp?"
Mm-hmm.
It was hectic, but I
Mm-hmm.
think they had a lot of fun. I just saw him
Mm-hmm.
create like so many WhatsApp groups. The coordination was excellent, and I think learners had a lot of fun, and they had very good results.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we've come up. I think life obviously has forced us to be extremely innovative, and it makes us wonder how we lived without internet. Because right now, I'll just question how would I go on without WhatsApp? To me, WhatsApp
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's gonna make email obsolete at some point. Because I don't see sense in doing a lot of emails. I think I do a lot of my communication.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I've narrowed it down from the high level offices where I do my interventions across board, which is
Mm-hmm.
it's quite extensive because I'm working with learners, teachers, school management, Ministry of Education. So you're working with the management, you're working with other stakeholders from private sector, public sector. I mean, so you want to speak to an official from MasterCard. At the same time, you need to get to know, do the kids get attended to in a particular class in a particular country in Africa? Right now,
Mm-hmm.
we're in 8 countries, and that can be extensive and exhausting. So WhatsApp has made it very easy for me to manage a lot of this work. So what we do is we create a lot of WhatsApp group. We have a team in Zanzibar, a full
Mm-hmm.
group of youth on WhatsApp. So this one has learners, we have educators, and then we obviously have, because with our projects, we very much involve the community. So there's another WhatsApp group for community. Same with Kenya, South Africa, Botswana, Rwanda, we're not yet there, but Nigeria, all the countries that we've started setting fit there. And I feel it's very convenient, makes my life very easy. We are able to communicate, people can get back to you and get information instantly. You can set a
Mm-hmm.
PDF document or any document on WhatsApp, you can share information. And right now we've advanced with voice notes, which I love because
Mm-hmm.
pen
Mm-hmm.
typing
Mm-hmm.
can take
I
a lot of
love
your
them
time.
too. Mm-hmm.
I love voice notes. I'll be in the gym, I'll be doing my work, I'll be cooking, and I'm working at the same time. I'm communicating. I've sent the message, and somebody knows this is where we are at, and this is what we need to do. So I think I'd love to encourage people, if you've not explored the route of doing business through WhatsApp, educating learners. I like what Dr. Max is doing. That is prudent. It's brilliant. We also do a lot of training. We have a club for children in Botswana for coding and robotics. And we had a lockdown. Like it's just right now, this week and last week, that kids are getting back to school, but we were home for 2 weeks. And as well, we used WhatsApp. We were training coding on WhatsApp, something that
Mm-hmm.
initially went like, how are you going to do that? But our instructors were able to. So kids are bored, they're home, and they're nagging parents. And the cell phone, the smartphone penetration in Africa is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And getting
Mm-hmm.
back to Dr. Mark's words, yes, it's about priorities. If you want it done, you'll get done. You'll make sure there's data for learners
Great.
to access information. Yeah.
A great point to end at. If you want it done, um, you will get it done. And I think I just want to echo something that one of my team members has pointed out. As much as possible, let's try to stay still and have our and just so that we can control the echoes. But I'm just seeing somebody submitting here, a teacher, one of the teachers from Rwanda submitting here and saying, yes, even in Rwanda, they use WhatsApp among teachers. They are able to share lessons, assessments, exams, schemes of work, and experiences. And it's very interesting because through WhatsApp, they're able to exchange and communicate amongst themselves as teachers. But of course, it talks about the problem where some students, most of the students, do not have smartphones. But for some students who use WhatsApp for their parents, we always try to communicate with them through WhatsApp about the lesson. So just affirming that indeed this is something that is catching fire across the continent. And I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting as I listen to us talk about WhatsApp groups and how it provides opportunity for real-time coordination across different members of a team, how it allows now, sometimes if it's about texting now, I think, yes, I have also love voice notes. When you don't have time to type in all what you need to type in, and of course to inject some life into it and have some sense of connection into it, voice note is a plus. So you just go there and, you record, and the other person will record back, and before you know it, you're having a whole conversation, sometimes in the midst of doing something else. As Sally says, she might be in the gym or cooking. So there's quite a bit of opportunity. In fact, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it. I mean, I am actually running a teacher training program that has over 3,000 teachers as part of the key target group, and we strictly have built an army of teachers, a sense of coordination, a sense of community, an opportunity to interact across schools, and actually also do training when the teachers were at home for the first, during the first school closures. We did that through WhatsApp. We had a central coordinating team. We had 52. We still have 52 WhatsApp groups where all these teachers are connected, and we are able to beam the information, the training content, feedback from within the WhatsApp groups. We even went further to come up with a way of analyzing the teachers' participation during official training hours on WhatsApp, so that then the person does, to check and to ensure that every teacher is productively engaging. So using R and mathematical programming language, you are able to work with some of our master students, and they came up with a process of analyzing the WhatsApp conversation. So at the end of any teacher training session, we could actually come up with levels of participation and quality of participation for every member of that WhatsApp group. So there's quite a bit going on. I think we just need to put everything together so that we can actually have a place of reference. We can learn that the issue of cross-pollination can continue going on, because I believe if we dig a little bit deeper, and I know we're not going to exhaust it as we talk to Brian and Maxwell today, there's quite a lot of lessons that we can come to. And I want us to come back to that, and then we're going back to remember the education trivia. Which country are we going to be discovering today? I'm going to give us hints, and I'm going to ask you to try and guess which country, which African country we are talking about. And then later, I'll play a brief audio from that country. They are listening to Teacher Talk Radio today for the first time. So they are very excited that they have been brought into the loop of this platform where we can have conversation and share ideas. But before we do that, I wanted us again to take a brief advertisement break. So I'm going to play our second advertisement, and then we'll come back to dig into the lessons.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
Thank you.
Every teacher loves stationery.
Teachers love stationery. I believe we all love stationery. We can't do without stationery. So I want to come back to Dr. Max, and just thinking about the broad areas you teach. Of course, there's assessment, and of course, there's a process of student participation in the learning. You've already highlighted, for example, that the parents played a key role in helping, of course, provide the connection, the internet connection, but also sometimes providing the oversight. Now, if you were to pick out key lessons that you have gathered through your first phase, you've been at it since 2019, thinking about teaching using WhatsApp and thinking about assessing using WhatsApp. Could you take us a little bit deeper in terms of how do you teach? How do you assess? And what are some of the lessons or things that you'd like to highlight for any teacher who is considering doing this? Things that they need to pay attention to ensure that they actually succeed in the endeavor. Dr. Matt.
Mastery
Dr.
approach.
Matt?
I think yes. Are you getting me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Can I proceed?
Yes, please. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. Okay, I usually use what we call a topic mastery approach in as much as the delivery of the lesson is concerned. Right? It's like whenever I deliver the lesson, there's this skill of how to deliver it, number one, and number two, and how to make sure that it's effective on the part of the student. So we are also helped by the Zimbabwe's new curriculum, which was implemented in 2017, which is a learner-based curriculum. You have to, it's like in that learning process, a teacher is not a teacher in the rightful sense, in the literal sense, but a teacher is like a facilitator in the learning process. So what I actually do, how I prepare my lesson, even on a daily basis, and I do it even as flexible as possible, because even if when I'm in a combi or when I'm in a bus to town, I can even deliver my lesson in such a way. It's very simple. With the topic master approach, I make an audio for the lesson, right? I make an audio lesson. I use the WhatsApp recording option because it is cheaper rather than the phone. Because the phone one would go a lot of megabytes. But I use the one. I use the one for WhatsApp. It's cheaper. Then I paste the notes, for specification. Suppose I might have notes, for example, notes for geography. I can paste the notes for the topic of population and settlement. And if there are diagrams, accompanying diagrams, I can screenshot those diagrams. Then my explanation in the audio covers what is in the notes, right? And together with the diagram, if the need may rise, then I send it at a given time. Let's say it's at 9 o'clock. I'm going to send this at 9 o'clock, right? Then I send textbooks as well. I can order them to say, okay, our topic that we have done for you to master the topic or to have much depth of that area, read this the topic in the textbook from this page, for example, page 70 to page 75. Then my lessons will be home and dry if it's, for example, at O level. At A level, that's when we'll be involving sources, Suppose I'm teaching history, French Revolution, we need confirmation from scholars, historical scholars like Dennis Richards, like Jonathan Speber, like David Thompson, like Agatha Ram, like C.A. Leeds, So it's like they will be reading the same information from all those various sources. So these WhatsApp lessons, how I conduct them, they are different from conventional lessons in the sense that in a conventional lesson, the interaction is like the teacher stands in front of the students in a class for 45 minutes delivering the lesson. But on WhatsApp, I just need a minute to deliver my lesson. I will be home and dry. What I would have given the student, it's up to him or her to work on it on his or her time. Just a simple. Yeah. So I said everything. It's like a lesson is made up of an audio lesson, is made up of notes, is made up of guiding textbooks. Just a symbol. So after writing, we'll be writing. Then we will give each other if daily work, if the need may rise, we can use we can have a periodic test as well. Right now, I have I didn't have a computer. Someone donated a computer for me, so I got an application called Adobe. It has some functions for marking. That's the one that I'm using. I put some ticks. If someone has gotten an 8 out of 10, I can write 8 out of 10. Well done, like I'm writing in a book. With, there's a red tick appearing on that platform, on that application. Just the symbols. So that's how I basically conduct my lessons. Audio lessons are very important because it's like I would have made the life easier for the student. When he or she sees at his own time, he will be home and dry. Just as simple as that.
Wow, interesting, interesting. Quite some key terminologies there that you've used, the issues of mastery. Because when you look at, actually, when you look at the education conversations, for example, within education research persons, we talk about, you can approach it from mastery, and you can also approach it like achievement, motivation goals. You can have the motivation of mastery or performance. And actually, mastery is promoted over performance approach. And I'm just listening to you, and you're talking about, you can be on the bus, but you're delivering your lesson. Of course, there's preparation, I believe, that happens before time for you to put together your notes, for you to put together what you want to put in your audio lessons and share. But then there's always a conversation about interaction. Students, I might read these notes, and perhaps I'm not making sense of a specific part. Of course, you have amplified that this really works for students who know they have to play a role in the learning. So it's not like they're expecting everything chewed up and just for them to swallow. They have a role to play. But how do you take care of interactions, opportunity to say, I didn't understand this part, Dr. Max, and I have a question on this. Yes. And any interaction amongst the students themselves. Yes.
Right. For me, I'm an examination specialist. I think you saw my records. I had 41 A's. So what I do, I have stages of interaction. There's a time for interaction. There's a time when I finish off the syllabus, or I finish off the topics that I want to be covered. Right? It's like I explained how I deliver the lesson. Then there is a time that I will make follow-ups. I'll say, let's say we are doing history, French Revolution. So today at 9 p.m., everyone must be online. And to check everyone's online presence, I say that you must raise your hand. There's a palm emoji. Yes, they raise that palm emoji. Then I would say, right, for the topic of the French Revolution, we are dealing with the cause of the French Revolution. Do you have any questions? Do you have any area or any way you are finding it difficult to understand? That's when the interaction would So it's like they would ask questions after I would have given them something at a certain time. Because on WhatsApp, order is very important. Because people have this mentality that on WhatsApp it's like it's always about sending jokes. It's all about casual talks or what. So I always try not to mix things all the time. So there's a time for just delivering the lesson. So
perfect.
Then there are some weeks, where I'll be saying, right, let me check back the lessons. I'll be going lesson by lesson at a daily basis or after a day, right? Then I'll be asking them, now we are on the course of the French Revolution. If you have any questions, you may ask. So when the students ask it, then I'll clarify and others will also understand this. Then that's how the discussion will go through, just as simple as that. Or even in the inbox. Because what I'm saying here is a group setup. I can interact with the students in the inbox one-on-one. Why? Because the students have different capabilities and different levels of understanding. So sometimes you must not use a straight jacket approach as a teacher, just assuming that everyone is knowing what you have said. So there are times when I would ask for the whole class in the group to ask any question, then I would clarify, or I would go individually and identify and solve individual problems thoroughly. Just as simple. So I have a period for lesson delivery, then I have a period for the interaction. Just as simple.
Wow. Real structure, real outline right there. And somebody one can map this back into some very key fundamental issues around learning, and especially, and also when you think about self-regulated learning, issues around concepts around environmental regulation. Students have to know what the platform is for. They know at this particular time. And you keep saying time, 9 p.m., all that. So issues of time and scheduling, and the teachers, the students being on their toes. And then, as you say, issues of differentiation, where sometimes instead of talking to them as a group, students know they can reach out to you as individuals, and you can also interact with them as, you can then engage with them as individuals. So quite some insightful submissions right there. And one can dig into this and map it back to real fundamental areas in education and how learning takes place, and you're actually drawing on them. It's very interesting because I know you tend to use the terminology unqualified teacher, but when somebody listens to you, you're taking into account some of the fundamentals, ensuring that your class is interactive, it's not teacher centered. You're looking at issues of differentiation, you're looking at issues of formative feedback to the students to find out what's going on. Of course, when we come back to assessment, we could go into that, but this is really, really, really eye-opening. And I hope our teachers and all the others who are on, you are identifying with some of the things that Dr. Max is saying. And in case you still have something that you want Dr. Max to clarify, please feel free to send in your chat, things that you find really resonating with you, connecting with what you also do, but also things that you want to query a little bit. And we will stay with the issue of interaction. And I want Brian to just share with us a little bit, help us picture that issue of coming into a room and debating. So am I calling in live? Am I sending in an audio and then somebody listens to it and the judges listen to it, and then as the other debater I can step in and give my part? And how did you do that? How did you take care of the issues of interactions, the issues of engagement, and the sense of energy that, as you say, came with the whole debating contest? What was your experience, Brian?
Okay, thank you. I think, as you already know, that debating is a very interactive, a very, a very interactive sport, I would say, a mental sport, I would say. So what happened was, we could not say we are going to call in to the WhatsApp group because it would mean so many things will be happening. So what we did is, we were very strict on the timing to say that, as a speaker, I think a normal debating has 3 speakers, right? So a speaker was given a maximum of 10 minutes to record the audio and send it to the group. Record using the WhatsApp recorder, like Maxwell had already stated. It's much easier to use the WhatsApp voice recorder. So you'd send your 7 minutes, speech, you send it to the group there. And 7 minutes reaches the international standard. That's the standard of the time given per speech. So the moment the speech is delivered into the group, where other speakers can now see the message that, okay, so the message came in at 12 past 5. So you have 10 minutes to listen to the VN. And after 10 minutes, you're going to close in for POIs. Point of informations are a thing in debate where you now ask for clarity, where you, to engage with what the speaker had said. So after 10 minutes, which is now at 22 past 5, your adjudicator will now close in for POIs, right? Closing for POIs will mean that we are now moving on to the next speaker. So it was very easy, in the sense that you control it using the time. And if the 10 minutes has elapsed, you cannot take in POIs, as per the standard would say, in your live debate, where you'd say, after a minute, I would clap my hands to show you that POIs are allowed. And after, when 1 minute is left, I'd tap my hands to show that POIs are now closed. We had to integrate that to use WhatsApp voice recordings. And one reason why we did choose to use recordings was the fact that, you can also get back to the room and listen. As a speaker, you can go back to your debate and listen to where you might improve. You always have that point of reference, so that in the next coming debate you can also improve as a speaker, because it's more of development. That way it's easier for you to go back and listen to how you deliver your speech, listen to your opponent's points, listen to your it's easier and more interactive when you are, say, when it's a recording, because it has that point of reference. And as for the adjudicating panel, one adjudicator can also, listen to that debating contest, learn from it, as the same way the other adjudicator can also listen to the other debate room. So it was happening that way. But of course, we did have, a few challenges there and there, to say that if you are sending in a voice message to the group, some of the people were not sending the voice notes as per the time allocated. It was very difficult, because sometimes we had to wait for 20 minutes for a person to deliver a speech, waiting, which was delaying the whole proceedings of the debate. But we had measures in place in terms of that. We would penalize you for doing that, because we had told you beforehand that this is what's going to happen. So by committing to that, we made you aware of the consequence of the action that you might take. So we did
Mhm.
cater for all those things.
Wow, wow. I can now picture the debate and I can actually see how feasible it is with clear guidelines, and people actually, I mean, just using the features within WhatsApp, the emojis, being able to, to signal it is time for this and keeping the eye on the clock. I think this is really exciting. And I really look forward to reaching out to you, Brian, so that we can see how to take this to other countries. Of course, you said students participated from different countries. And I think we should work to make it even bigger. I mean, we don't have to wait for school closures. We can look at issues. I mean, look at when schools are on holiday, as Max has said, and as Sally also intimated to it. During school holidays, our children sometimes don't have a lot of stuff to do. And if they're doing anything, perhaps they're doing things that potentially are not really building them. But if they know there's a contest, and it's a debating contest, for example, I mean, it's a great addition to the choices they may have to engage in. So really great work right there, and really, really, really great work. And I'm happy that through this conversation, we are almost like, taking notes, putting it down on record, and we can go back and learn from it and share the notes even wider as people come back to listen to this. I want to encourage all our live listeners. Thank you for being on board. And yes, it's a great, great conversation. And I hope you're all taking notes. And remember, you can continue, you can jump into the conversation. Please send in your thoughts on through text. If you have a question, a comment about what people have said, please join in. And of course, if you want to share and beam out what's going on here through the other platforms like Twitter, please go ahead and do that. TT Radio 2021, and you can always tag me, Dr. Otieno M. So really, we are having great conversations, and I want to come back to Sally. But before I come back to Sally, I want us to go into our African education trivia. As Sally says, she's working across sub-Saharan Africa. She's working in 8 countries. And one of the things we have to work on as Africans is to get to know one another. For us to collaborate, we need to get to know one another. We need to know what's going on in each of our backyards. What are the unique experiences? What are the similar experiences? What can we then learn from each other, and how can we collaborate? And so today, we want to find out how well we know our countries. And so I'm going to give some hints about this particular country, and then we're going to find out what country it is. In our teaser show last time, Maxwell and Brian already tried to guess what country it was. I will not reveal what they said first. I just want to read out some key points about this country. So this country, it has an education system that runs from kindergarten down to university, kindergarten especially more in the urban area. That's fairly common across many African countries. But I want to point out some unique aspects. One, their primary school runs from grade 1 to 4. And then they have junior secondary school that runs from grade 5 to 8. And then they have a senior high school that runs from grade 9 to 12. The other thing is that in this particular African country, they have at class 8, they have regional exams. So they do not do a country national exam. Students sit for regional exams. And then it's only at grade 12 that the students sit for national exams that are then used for their admission into universities. So primary grade 1 to 4, they have junior and senior high school, and they have regional exams at grade 8. The question is, what country are we talking about? What country are we talking about? I'm going to ask you to guess or to try to answer. Those of us listeners who are live, try to type out what country you think we are talking about. I will be able to find out, to read out what your submissions are, and later reveal through an audio recording from a teacher from that country. They're listening for the first time. They're joining for the first time Teacher Talk Radio and this show in particular. And I'm going to play an audio from them, and we'll discover which country we're talking about. But before that, please try to guess, what country are we talking about? What country are we talking about? Thank you, Lloyd from Botswana. Thank you for joining us and being part of the conversation. But let's guess, which country are we talking about? Primary school, grade 1 to 4. That was the first time I had something like that. So before I go to Sally, I just want to play an audio here from one of the students, as I wait for your submissions, from one of the students from Dr. Max's school. who talked about their experience. And just to listen to what they're saying, I hope I can get the students. Yes, I think I've said it. So let's listen to the student. I might not play the whole audio, but let's just listen to what the student says. And why this is important is because Dr. Max and Brian have all talked about student responsibility. There's a sense of participation, engagement. They cannot sit back as passive engagers if we're talking about using WhatsApp. So let's hear what one of the students says. One of Dr. Max's students, he was in his school last year and now is headed to university and is quite excited.
Hello, how are you? I'm Lawrence Mrambo from Maxwell Chimeza Online Academy. I did my online lessons with him for my 2 years of A level, from which I obtained A grades in all my subjects I studied there. As per the tutoring offered by Max, I got to say he is such a teacher with par excellence and simplicity, because he would offer all the materials required for effective learning. He would give clear guidance and managed to get in touch with the students and their parents as well, so as to secure both financial and social threads, which would enhance the betterment and excellence of a student. The technique implied by Dr. Max are par and pair teacher scrutinizing, for he managed to carry out speed tests, assignments, and examinations as per stipulated time. If there is one of the best things I enjoyed, was the order and time consciousness inflected by Dr. Max as per his observance in his academy. Despite the fact that it was an online institution, he managed to make sure that all the threads and all the ties that bring about together the formation of the students' excellence and passing were put together. All these worked out for the good and betterment of students. From that touch STEAM schemes, he was able to make sure that all students pass. He is a trunk from which many stems have bloomed from, in order to be called today successful students going to university and to different colleges as per their own perceptions and perspectives. So I would like to say, or to give a word to the teachers out there, as well as the students who are there to study or who are still yet to study on online lessons or academies, that guys, you ought to pull up your socks, you ought to work harder, and also have to make sure that all the materials are available and they are read. Laziness does not collide with excellence, but hard work, order, and time consciousness breeds excellence. Do not seek fame, but be fair, and excellence will be your daily meal, and you will not have to worry about any other thing that may be being brought by the pandemic outbreak, lockdowns, but you'll be able to secure all the things and all the areas you'll be studying, you'll be able to make it. Thank you. Hello, how are you? I'm
Wow. So I reached out to Lawrence through his WhatsApp, and he was able to send me that as a recording through his WhatsApp. So just also another illustration how WhatsApp really allows for ease in connectivity and interaction within the continent. And there's quite a bit of feedback right there. I mean, the issues of order, the issues of timeliness, the issues of personalization of teaching as one of the things that he says Dr. Max paid attention to. And of course, the contribution of the student themselves. Talks about laziness that does not collide with success. So quite a bit of insight there, just listening to a student. And as I hope you caught the part where he said he got straight A's in all the units or the subjects that he actually learned through Dr. Max WhatsApp Academy. So, and perhaps a fairly different story from where we started, where we were talking about the radio lessons and the research that we were sharing from Sierra Leone was actually pointing out to the fact that perhaps our radio lessons so far are not as impactful or as effective as possible. But we have success stories here, a whole debate that was carried out and went on well with all global standards and rules followed. And here we are talking about students in numbers, over 40 students headed to the universities, having scored almost all straight A's because of their engagement and interaction with teachers through the WhatsApp Academy. So I'm still waiting for us to suggest which country we are talking about, a country in Africa that has a primary school running from grade 1 to 4. Let's just say that last time I asked this question, I asked Maxwell and Brian. Maxwell said Ethiopia and Brian said Ghana. Maxwell and Brian, I wonder if any one of you now wants to change their choice now that I have talked about what some of the hints. I hope you are not run very quickly to online to check. But Brian, do you still stand with your proposal of Ghana? And Maxwell, do you still think that the country we are talking about is actually Ethiopia? Or do you have another country in mind? And Sally, of course, you can jump in. Which country do you think we're talking about?
Well, I'm
Anybody?
still standing with Ghana.
Brian stands with Ghana. Maxwell? I think I muted you. Maxwell?
Yes, hello. Are you getting me?
Yes.
I had suggested Ethiopia last time.
So do you still stand with Ethiopia or you want to change? You know, there are so many countries in Africa now that you have not changed. Okay. Yes. Sally, what do you think? Which country might we be referring to? You are the sub-Saharan guru going around Africa implementing education interventions. Which country is this? No, you are Africa. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is quite a challenge. I'm actually scratching my head, but I think South Africa, that's the system we have. Grade 12, you said the exam is done in grade 12, right?
Yes, they do grade 12. A number of countries do exams in grade 12, but this country, the grade 8 exams are regional exams. They're not national exams, and their primary is grade 1 to 4. Grade 5 to 8 is considered as junior secondary school. So anyway, because of time, I'm going to release what country it is by playing a brief audio. I won't play to the end, but I know the teachers are listening. They're here for the first time, and we're excited to have them on the show. So let's find out which country and who got it right. One of them actually got it right, Maxwell or Brian. Who got it right? Let's have a listen.
Hello. Hi, how are you, everybody? I am Kumalacho from Ethiopia. I'm a mathematics teacher. I've been teaching mathematics for more than 30 years in secondary schools in Ethiopia. And I'm living in the northwest part of Ethiopia, the so-called Amhara region.
Okay, so I'll pause there because of time. So anyway, just to say that Maxwell was right, the country we are referring to is Ethiopia. Well done, Maxwell. And remember, take note of some of this key information because at the end of the month, we'll have a trivia with a few questions around few countries. Each week, we'll discover one country in Africa so that we get to know one country at a time and we get to look for opportunities for collaboration and cross-pollination of ideas. As we move towards parting shots for the show, there's quite a bit we can still talk about, but as we move towards parting shots, allow me to play today's news.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn. On Friday, the Joint Committee for Vaccination and Immunisation said that it would not recommend vaccinating all 12 to 15-year-olds. They would, however, widen the existing programme to include more children in that age group with health conditions. Several national newspapers have reported that government ministers remain keen to offer vaccinations to all children in that age group despite recommendations. The JCVI stated on Friday that coronavirus presented only a small risk to children and that as a result of this, the benefits of vaccination were not great enough to support mass vaccination for this age group. Use of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines has been approved for those aged 12 and over by the Independent Medicines Regulator, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Board. The Education Secretary for England, Gavin Williamson, has said on a previous occasion that he hopes very much that the under-16s could be vaccinated. Northern Ireland Health Minister Robin Swan, however, has said that the issue of a wider rollout warrants further consideration. In the UK, education leaders are calling for all teachers to receive bereavement training, given the large numbers of COVID-19 victims. So far, only a small number of teachers have received this training, as it's voluntary. The charity Child Bereavement UK has said that 86% of teachers have reported experiencing a death in the school community, and almost 3/4 have said they are teaching students affected by the death of someone significant. Bereavement training for teachers is being driven by the Centre for the Art of Dying Well at St Mary's University in West London. Course leader Lise Gordon said they aim to normalise the conversations around death for children. They're looking at things around the language we use to talk about death. Ms Gordon told Sky News the vital training should be mandatory for new and current teachers across the UK. The Child Bereavement UK helpline has reported that 16% of calls over the past year have been from teachers seeking guidance around bereavement. This has been your weekend education news briefing.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, the news context is not Africa, but I believe there was quite a bit we could draw from that. The conversations around vaccination of students or younger people. That's something that, of course, we may not still have within our horizon as Africa, because we're still quite a few of the adult population has been vaccinated. But just to know there's that concern. But also, I like the other part that's talking about bereavement. I mean, we even in our classrooms, we are talking about engaging with students and teachers who are facing bereavement during this COVID-19 pandemic. And just as they are talking about that, something we need to consider and think about, I think, yes, we should go home thinking about that and asking ourselves, how prepared are we on what it is that we can do to get more skillful and better at having those conversations. I think Maxwell dropped, and this is the point where we come to the end of our show. And because Sally is here, Sally, I know I didn't give you a second chance, but perhaps you could help us close by just parting shot from all the conversations we've had today, listening to Brian, listening to Maxwell, and thinking about your own experience with WhatsApp in half a second. What can you say about what the direction we're headed as a continent? Sally?
Can you hear me? You can
Sally?
hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Otieno. This is quite engaging, and I'm very happy to see people from all walks of life that joined. Let's go back to it takes a village to raise a child. Let's collaborate, let's share ideas, let's create the Africa we want. From Cape to Cairo, if we can often meet and have this kind of discussions, we won't sit like a lame duck saying here is COVID or some next to be something else. And that obviously has an impact to the next generation. So this is very brilliant. I'm happy to see that we had teachers like Maxwell, who was able to make sure that kids went on with school. And I'm sure we had many other teachers that were super innovative. Well done, comrades. Let's keep it up.
Let's keep it up. And thank you, everybody who was here as live speakers. Thank you, Nemachi, for saying this was very informative and interesting. And for all of us who like the show, I look forward for us having more conversations. And please listen back. When you listen back, you're able to take notes. You're able to extract something that you can carry with you and do something with. We don't just want to talk. We want to talk, learn, and act so that we build the Africa that we want. So thank you very much. This is your very own education doctor, Africa's own education doctor and education evangelist, Dr. Herine Otieno. Looking forward to having you guys again next Sunday. And please keep the conversation going on WhatsApp, on Twitter, and on the other platforms. Let's remain connected. We are one country, one continent. And it is our responsibility to build the continent that we want. And that's why we have this show every Sunday. Thank you very much. Over and out. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sally. And of course, Maxwell, who dropped out. And thank you, all our live listeners. Always a pleasure to have you. And this is me signing out with this closing jingle.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.